Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, One Piece chapter 1047 is out. If you guys haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. Oh man, this is it, right? We are at the precipice of the end of the fight, pretty much. Or not. I say this because, and I can't be the only one, but do you guys feel a difference in this being the conclusion of the fight? It feels a little different. Just so that I'm sort of explaining well what I'm thinking here. I don't remember a single fight in One Piece where the actual last moment of the fight, the last punch you could say, where when it actually happened that I didn't believe that it was about to happen. Obviously most, if not every fight in One Piece is a journey. But by the conclusion of it, when we reach that last punch, there's a sense of certainty or inevitability that I don't feel here with Luffy and Kaido. That's not to say that it can't happen, but feeling certainty, I can't claim that. And this leads to another interesting observation. When you think about main bosses, we're not talking about side bosses, we're talking about main bosses of arcs that Luffy has fought. A devil fruit related power-up, or in fact any power-up that is not related to Haki, has never been solely responsible for Luffy's victory. The only possible exception that I can think of is Snake Man versus Katakuri. But I'm just personally of the belief that Snake Man is not an upgrade of Gear 4th, it is merely a form of Gear 4th. The reason he defeated Katakuri was because he'd mastered Future Sight. Once the skill was acquired, in pretty short order, Luffy won. But yeah, you could think of something silly like Mizu Luffy versus Crocodile in Alabasta. He acquired the skill, but he didn't immediately win because of it. Go to Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd in Enies Lobby. He defeated Blueno obviously, but when he fought Lucci, those gears weren't enough. Of course, he needed those in order to win, but you get the sense, right? The message that Oda was getting at was the reason that Luffy won was because of his determination and willpower. Take yourself to Thriller Bark, right? Luffy uses Nightmare Luffy, incredibly powerful, very instrumental in defeating Moria, however, it did not defeat Moria. Again, looking at Gear 4th in Dressrosa, Gear 4th made Luffy absurdly powerful, and he had Doflamingo on the ropes, but then the power ran out. As consistent as this is, it's very obviously kind of a theme that Oda goes with these fights. Yes, Devil Fruit powers matter, they have an influence on the battle. Luffy wouldn't be where he is without his Devil Fruit for sure. But at the end of the day, the thing that takes Luffy over the edge constantly is determination and willpower, or sometimes the friends that he has. As you guys will obviously know, another name for willpower is Haki. It's another way of saying that Haki is most important, which is something that Kaido says in this chapter itself. Kaido tells us that Roger didn't have a Devil Fruit, something that I'm very glad has been officially canonized. He brought the world to heal without an ability. And immediately after hearing this, Luffy flexes his Devil Fruit. Now I'm sure there will be some that'll say that Luffy's ability is also a flex of Haki as well, because not only is his fist the size of the island of Onigashima itself, but he has also covered his entire fist in Haki. The surface area coverage here is insane. But I'm not sure that it is as much of a flex as it may appear to be. The last guy who really flexed his armament Haki in this way was Virgo. Virgo coated his entire body in Haki, kind of unnecessarily, really. And he still got cut in half. I think that we saw something similar with Pika as well. So size doesn't necessarily matter here, it's how you use it. But again here, this doesn't mean that Luffy isn't flexing his Haki. We could have a scene in the next chapter, for instance, like, I think Gohan and Cell, Kamehameha battle, where at first Luffy's not making any progress, and then suddenly his Haki improves somewhere in the middle, and then he crushes Kaido, and that's emphasized. It's also possible that we're immediately going into a Kaido flashback in the next chapter, which would substantiate that this could be the end of the battle. But as we're sitting right now, based on how I interpreted the chapter, Kaido says, your ability isn't what makes you king, it's your Haki. And then hockey isn't the emphasis, right? Luffy does something incredible with his new devil fruit, which doesn't seem like he got the message. And the other thing which kind of interrelates with all of this is, and this is my gut feeling, it may be different, but I don't feel like Kaido is really at the end of his rope. I know that there's some things which suggest he's heading in that direction. For instance, Onigashima is falling. But I look at carrying the entire island of Onigashima as like an incredible flex on Kaido's part. That almost really he's been distracted the whole battle because he's doing something which is totally unnecessary. When you actually look at him and then you see him fight Luffy earlier, I mean, we're not quite at that, okay, I feel like Kaido is about to fall. I don't equate the island falling as Kaido falling. I may be mistaken, but that is how I feel. So just to wrap this up here and be succinct with my thoughts, I'm not saying that for sure Kaido isn't going down in the next chapter. I'm just saying that I'm not sure, which is a very weird place. I had the same feeling with Big Mom regarding Law and Kid, and as they defeat Big Mom, she says, "Don't think me defeated." Well, let's just assume that Kaido is defeated. Like, how could some of these things wrap up? We'll start off with some of the laws that I have, the rules that must be accomplished before Kaido is defeated. Denjiro must do something. Well, we have in this chapter, we have a scene with Hiyori and Orochi. Orochi is still alive, ready for more punishment. He says, "I'm going to take Hiyori with me. Are you watching, Odin?" Well, I think that I really like Odin appearing. You guys know Ghost Piece, Odin appearing. I love that. However, Denjiro could also appear, and that would be also really good. I'm not sure if that fulfills my criteria of Denjiro doing something that is worthy of all the hype beforehand, but at least he does something. And then we have the lanterns that the people of the Flower Capital are sending up into the skies. Again, you guys know that I love Ghost Piece, and eventually we're going to talk about that because there's some things from this chapter which make that relevant discussion. But ignoring that and assuming Kaido is going down with this fist of the god that Luffy is throwing, Momonosuke could read those lanterns and it could inspire him. It could be what Momo needs in order to first lift the island and then move it. Another idea I've been toying with, I'm not sure if this works or not because the island would fall, but I still believe that Onigashima should act as a drain. The hole that Law created, all the water should funnel through that or over the edge, which means that thousands of people are going to be washed from the island, so that makes this even more complicated, I feel like, if it's true, and it should be true. But yeah, there's a lot going on. I don't even want to discuss the possibility that Momo can't, he's able to lift the island, but he can't move it, right? So then the island gets destroyed into little tiny pieces, which rain down on the Flower Capital, and or Momonosuke fails. I'm not sure that that's particularly likely, but it's a possibility. It fails, the island falls down. We're going to avoid that for now, but, think about it. But yeah, Ghost Piece, it is now or never. Literally now or never. If you guys don't know what that is, basically the idea is that Fire Festival is about communicating with the dead. So, the dead are going to communicate with the living and actually do something. But the question from the beginning has been this, are the dead literally going to appear, or is this, metaphorical? Once again, this chapter has a lot of things which I would consider to be teasers if the dead actually appear. In Momonosuke's flashback, which just as a side note I thought was very powerful emotionally, when Momonosuke turned around and said, "Mother, I will be on my way now," that hurt. But Toki tells Momonosuke, "I am certain you will be able to revive the Kozuki clan after you leap 20 years into the future." If you want to, you can read this two ways. The obvious way, I think the way most people would, is that Momonosuke is going to revive the Kozuki clan by becoming shogun and recreate the line of succession. On the other hand, after 20 years traveling to the future, Momonosuke may revive the Kozuki clan, as in the dead, the spirits that are watching over Wano are going to appear. I understand that many people aren't going to be convinced by this possible example, but I'm just curious because of the line later where Kinemon says, "I beg you to give us another chance to fight. I would rather die with honor on the battlefield than wait here and burn to death. Can't you give us that chance? I would do anything to wield my sword for you, my lord." And I apply this to the many samurai who've died, here or in the past, during battle or outside of it. There is undoubtedly thousands of samurai who never got the chance, another chance to fight. Oda talked about this a little bit earlier in the arc through Shutenmaru, where Shutenmaru's grudge against the Scabbards and Momonosuke as they went to the future is they left everybody here on this island to suffer. And many of the samurai, rather than choosing to die through poison or starvation, chose to sacrifice their lives instead. It was one of the scenes related to Sanachi. They, just the same as Kinemon expresses in this flashback, want to be given that chance. They would do anything to wield a sword again for their lord. You could potentially consider this their dying wish or dying will. And death itself was repeatedly emphasized in the chapter through the remaining samurai, boss Hyogoro, even Usopp. Boss Hyogoro's speech, I think, was of particular interest because, kind of like smiling before death, death didn't matter. Do you samurai have a screw loose? We're all done for. And so what if we are? This line has even more power if the dead come back and influence the story in some way. But I think the most obvious connection is Orochi, where he transforms into his devil fruit. He's still on fire, thinks he's going to die, but he's going to take Hiyori with him, and he says, "Are you watching, Odin? Your dear daughter is going to accompany me to hell." I've said for the longest time that I think the most fitting end for Orochi is at the hands of a ghost or ghosts, because that is what he fears. Set up from the very beginning of this arc. So while I might argue that Denjiro appearing to save Hiyori makes sense, Odin makes more sense to me. As long as Oda has some sort of rationale, some sort of explanation for how that happened. If it happens. But let's go back to Luffy, right? I basically said that I don't think that Oda has emphasized that Luffy is using his Haki in order to defeat Kaido. He's using his Devil Fruit. So in order for this defeat to make more sense to me, Oda would need to establish that. Like, it's not Luffy's Devil Fruit, it's Luffy's will to win. And so I imagine that in my head like Gohan and Cell, where they have their Kamehameha waves going against each other. At first they're equal, then Cell is stronger. I could see the same thing with Luffy's punch and Kaido. But what was the difference in that fight? The difference was Goku, who was dead, appeared. I'm just saying that Oda could use this as a source of inspiration, and it would make a lot of sense. And then, of course, it's kind of what I've been saying this whole time is, yes, it would make sense if Momonosuke reads the lanterns and it inspires him, allows him to accomplish even more. But at the same time, the lantern's purpose is to communicate with the dead. Toko wants the lantern to reach her dad. Momonosuke is not her daddy. So I definitely want this phenomenon to be in some way confirmed. Just because they win the battle, I don't consider that to be enough. I want something. But like I said earlier, it is now or never. But at least I think that you can see that the setup is here. Oda is emphasizing the lanterns and communicating with the dead at the climactic moment where you would expect them to appear if they were going to. But anyway, I cannot wait to see what actually happens. This break week is one part very unfortunate that we have to wait a week between this, and the other part kind of conspicuous because I'm not going to go back and look at this, but I tend to think like the defeats of villains happen more towards the end of several chapters in a row, rather than immediately after a break week. I could be wrong, but that's just my gut feeling. Maybe I remember correctly. Definitely it makes more sense from a weekly reading perspective to not have a break week just before the climactic defeat of, so far, the greatest main boss in the entire series. So we may have more than one chapter to wait. But I feel as though we should talk about the Big Mom Pirates, at least a little bit at this juncture, and the possibilities for post-Kaido. I think that you also have to wonder a lot about Big Mom in this moment, right? So, again, assuming that Luffy's giant punch, Momo's going to use his powers and move the island, Luffy is going to punch Kaido and defeat him. There's some debate about this, and I understand that reasonable minds can differ, but it was my impression that Big Mom is not defeated. I do not think that Big Mom passed out. So Kaido is defeated And the same is true of most of his subordinates. Those that remain have their spirits broken, they are scattered, so they don't pose a large threat anymore. The Straw Hats and the Samurai likewise have pushed themselves beyond their limits, so after Kaido is defeated, you can't imagine that they will be able to mount much of a defense. And then you have Big Mom, who still has some fight left in her, and her crew, which should have a lot of fight left in them. They are now the single most powerful presence within Wano currently. The only thing that could potentially rival them is the government ships outside. A lot of people seem to want to believe that Big Mom is just going to run away. But as the timing lines up for me, that makes no sense to me. If Big Mom just simply wakes up, now if she's totally unconscious and I'm wrong about that, then that changes the game. I could see the Big Mom pirates finding Big Mom unconscious and then saying, okay, we don't care about anything else, let's get Mama out of here. And then Big Mom plays a role in some other arc in some way. But if she is still conscious, the first thing in her mind should be getting revenge and what can she gain from Kaido's territory, which is now open for the taking. I think something absolutely crucial that Big Mom has to want is Kaido's road poneglyph, or poneglyphs plural. This is an opportunity that literally cannot be wasted. And the same is obviously true regarding Law, Kid, and Luffy. All the people that Big Mom has sworn revenge against, nobody is capable of defeating her anymore if she is not already defeated. And let me remind you, her last words were, "Do not think me defeated." That did not feel conclusive. But yeah, basically what we need to think about if Kaido is going down is, okay, well, what is the pathway of escape? Because that seems like next on the docket, like Eni's lobby, right? Luffy defeated Lucci, and then the question is how do we escape imminent death? And another question here, and I'm not entirely sure about this, but they're supposed to free Wano. But if they run immediately after defeating Kaido, yes, Kaido's no longer here, but the government's gonna swoop in, Big Mom could still potentially be here. You know, there's like, have they really left Wano in a better way? This could provide Zunisha an opportunity to do something. I mean, she's here. We thought that maybe she would put out the fire, and I guess she did in a way, but not directly. So Zunisha still needs to play a role, and that could be against all of the government ships. I've said before, I'll say it again, I personally believe that Zunisha dies here. But for sure, she's got to do something. But I still think that Oda needs to deal with Big Mom. I hate making these declarative statements, but if the Big Mom Pirates' whole reason for being here was to rescue Big Mom after she didn't really get defeated, but was knocked off the island, then I would find that to be incredibly underwhelming. A lot of people have already moved on saying, oh, this is what the Big Mom Pirates are, but I think that it's more of like frustration with their role and just wanting them, the arc to end and for them to go away. Just one of these connections that I want to re-emphasize and repeat, even though we've done it before, but yes, Big Mom holds a grudge against the Straw Hats, against Luffy, Law, and Kid. But when it comes to the people of Wano, the state that Kaido has left this island in should be something that Big Mom hates. She's created her paradise, and one of the main things about her paradise is that everybody eats, because that's what Big Mom herself values. So to find a country that has literally been starved and poisoned to death, unhealthy food, this is everything that Big Mom should be against. And even if Big Mom herself has lost her way, right? There's something that Big Mom initially stood for, and she no longer stands for it, which you could say may be the case since she allied with Kaido in the first place. She still taught these ideals to her children. And again, some of her children may have lost their way, but some others may not have. So there's room here for something in the post-Kaido part of Wano. But I'm just sitting here, just kind of like Dendro, I need them to do something. Something that feels worth all of the excitement that I invested in them. I believe that will come, but it's important, I think, to bring it up when talking about my expectations for the future. But I think all of this discussion kind of relates to what I feel like will be a common comment in this week's review, which is that, you know, Kaido's going down and the arc's going to end soon simply for pacing reasons. Simply because if it doesn't go like this, then the arc will drag. And I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a legitimate concern. It's one of those things that I don't envy about Oda. Again, I'm writing my own story, and I have the privilege of being able to write something and feeling out whether it works or not, and then going back and changing things. You know, like you can write out 2 different scenarios if you really needed to and compare, like what works about this, what works about that, or, you know, so on. But Oda, he's pretty much drawing by the seat of his pants. And so I don't envy that. But sitting here talking to you guys right now, like, would the arc feel dragged if Kaido doesn't go down here? And we have some kind of, I think Kaido goes down, I want to make this clear, goes down in this arc, but if there's more, if it drags out more, will it feel that way? And I can't say for sure. I think for me, it really depends on how the space is filled. Like, you know, a lot of people think that, you know, I have no criticisms of One Piece, but I certainly do. I don't think that it's perfect. And one example of that is the end of Dressrosa, where we were talking about this, right? Luffy goes Gear 4th and then has Doflamingo on the ropes, and that could have been a really good time to take Doflamingo down, especially because when Luffy ran out of Haki and all those things and Gats and the countdown and stuff, like that did feel like dragging to me. But there's many other examples where something similar occurred and it didn't. Either way, guys, yet again, I'm really excited to see what happens. Another thing worthy of keeping in mind is Oda is a slave to numbers, and he likes to end arcs at the 50 or 100 mark. And so for Kaido to go down around chapter 1050 makes a lot of sense to me. But then I also expect the conflict of Wano itself to end at chapter 1100. Or probably more accurately, 1090. Because there is no way we're finishing Wano, including the marine presence, and there's a lot of things left that we need to do. There's no way we're finishing that by 1050, which is a curious problem, considering Oda is a slave to numbers. That might seem absolutely ridiculous to you, but the New World began at chapter 600, Fishman Island ended 650, Punk Hazard ended at 700, Dressrosa ended 800. Obviously Zoe was a shorter arc which ended at a weird time, so maybe that is an exception to the rule, but Whole Cake Island ended at 900, so it's something worthy of thinking about. You best believe that Oda would he would prefer to have ended Wano arc itself, the entirety of it, by 1050 or 1100. 1050 does not seem possible, so. But yeah, read and find out. I really enjoyed this chapter of One Piece. As always, I'm curious as to what you guys think, whether you know something from the chapter that I might have missed. Share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video, subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.